started, I would like to introduce KYZEN's own Ethan Mueller.
Thank you, Chelsea. Good morning and welcome to today's Tech to Tech session. Our topic, remanufacturing and rust. How do we avoid it? How do we avoid rust in our remanufacturing process? Before we get to all that, I'd like to go over what remanufacturing is. In a nutshell, it is the rebuilding of old or damaged equipment for reuse. We'd like to give worn out equipment a second life, if you will. If I'm a remanufacturer, I want my customer to expect the same performance from my remanufactured part as they would expect from a part directly off the shelf. Unfortunately, in the remanufacturing industry, there are certain challenges that we're dealing with that the other guys don't have to deal with. And first and foremost is the parts that are coming in to be rebuilt are dirty. They're covered in oils and greases and coolants. They have burnt on carbon. And we're dealing with road grime, which consists of dirt and tar and salts and bugs. And of course, we're dealing with rusts and scales and oxides. And on top of that, we have complicated assemblies that we either have to take apart or we're working around taking them apart. We have complicated geometries with hard to prep surface areas. We're dealing with multi-metal assemblies. It's not uncommon to see a steel part with aluminum components and vice versa. It's not uncommon to see brass or copper in the mix. So where do we start to keep rust out of our remanufacturing process? And the answer is it really starts with the right prepping process. And there's a lot of prepping processes out there for you to choose from. I encourage you to do your due diligence and choose what's best for you. For the sake of this presentation, we will be focused on aqueous cleaning because that's what we do at KYZEN and that's where we offer our expertise. So the first thing when we're trying to choose the correct prepping process is we need to look at our equipment. We need equipment that can handle our largest and our heaviest parts. We need equipment that can match our throughput. And of course, we need our equipment to fit our budget. When it comes to aqueous cleaning, we need to choose the right chemistry. We need to be able to remove our toughest soils. We need it to be compatible with our components. And we need to be able to expect a certain bath life. We don't want to have to change out our bath every few shifts or every few days. We want our bath to last for weeks or even months. Of course, we need it to be safe for our employees and safe for the environment. And once again, we need it to fit our budget. So this is an example of an aqueous cleaning process. This is an actually pretty robust cleaning process. It starts off with a pre-cleaning step utilizing a vacuum degreaser with solvent in it. And that gets rid of gross majority of our oils and our greases. And then we go to our first wash stage, which is going to be an alkaline cleaner of some sorts. And that's going to get rid of a majority of those oils and greases and some of that carbon. And then we're going to go through a rinse stage, which we want to go through a rinse stage here because we're going from a base to an acid. So we don't want to be neutralizing anything. And then here we are in our third stage, which is our acid stage, which is going to remove the rest of the carbon and all of the rust and oxides on our part. And then we're going to go into a rinse stage. And sometimes we have 1 or 2 or even 3 of these. And this is a great step or a great tank to apply a rust preventative in. So we've chosen our prepping process. How do we proceed to keep rust out of our manufacturing process? And the answer is, when it comes to aqueous cleaning, we really need to maintain our prepping process or our aqueous cleaning process. And that means that we need to make sure that our process parameters are in check. We need to make sure that our chemical concentration is where we decided it needed to be to give us consistent cleaning results. We need to focus on other parameters, our temperatures, our spray pressures. We need to manage our wash times. And of course, we need to maintain our equipment. And this kind of ties into to maintaining the process parameters. We need to make sure that our heaters aren't burnt out. We need to make sure that our nozzles aren't clogged. And this also involves the wash solution in the machine. Periodically, we need to dump the tanks. We need to clean those tanks, and we need to recharge them with fresh water and fresh chemistry. And it's a really good idea to implement some sort of in-process QC check. Even if you're doing maintaining your process properly, it's a really good idea to implement that QC check. And if you do experience failure, you go back, you look upstream, and you resolve any issues that you come across. This next point gets its own slide because it is so important when we're trying to manage rust in our remanufacturing process. And that is, we need to completely remove rust from any incoming parts. This is imperative. We cannot prevent rust if we have existing rust. So we've cleaned our parts, we've prepped our parts, we've removed all of the rust. How do we continue to prevent rusting in process and also when our parts go off for storage? We apply a rust preventative. When it comes to choosing the right rust preventative product, it starts with choosing the right product. What metal or metals am I trying to protect? What type of film am I going after? What is it going to do to the appearance of my part? How is it going to impact my downstream processes? Is this something that I need to remove? And then, of course, how long of protection am I looking for? These are all important considerations when choosing an RP product. And once you've selected the correct RP product, we need to come up with the right way to apply that RP product. What is our tank configuration going to look like? Are we going to do this in a rinse tank or rinse tanks in series with our cleaning process? Or are we going to have some sort of secondary application where we apply RP away from the cleaning process? Perhaps maybe we're cleaning aluminum and steel in our cleaning process, so we need two separate corrosion inhibitor steps to apply the correct corrosion inhibitor to the correct metal. Chemical concentration, yep, we've already selected our product, but now we need to determine what RP concentration to run it at. A lot of the RPs, you can increase the concentration, which will increase the length of time that the part is protected. But on the other hand, we need to ask ourselves, what is this going to do to our appearance? How is this going to impact our downstream processes? Most of the RPs are not visible at low concentrations, but as you start to increase the concentration, you might start to notice a white film or a cloudy film, if you will. And it's always important to consider these next couple of things. They're easily overlooked, but what are the transit conditions that your parts are going on? Are they being shipped on a truck or are they going across the Pacific? Seasonality, do you have certain months that are more humid than other months? And climate, what is the climate of where I'm building my parts or rebuilding my parts versus the climate that I'm going to store my parts in or ship those parts through? Just like with the cleaning process, we need to ensure that our RP process is in check. And this means we need to maintain our RP concentration to ensure that we are getting the right amount of protection. And we want to avoid upstream contamination from something like a failed prepping stage. It's always a really good idea to test your RP product or any manufacturing process for that, do some benchtop testing. And a really good way to test RP products is in humidity chamber. 1 day in the humidity chamber is roughly equivalent to 9 days in the real world. Of course, this is going to be dependent upon where your parts are being stored, but this will give you some really nice insight and give you an idea of what you can expect from your RP product. Okay, so we've applied the RP. Now we're worry-free, right? We don't have to worry about rust anymore. Well, applying the RP is a big part of the battle, but there's a little more to it. We also have to ensure that we are properly handling and storing our parts once we have applied that RP. We want to minimize handling prior to and during storage because physical contact to the parts can obstruct the coating and lead to failure. It is not uncommon to see a part that somebody handled with their bare hands and to see a perfect little fingerprint rusted into that part. It's kind of neat. It's actually like a little mini crime scene, if you will. We want to avoid direct contact with water. We don't want our parts to be rained on. The dry film products, they're really designed to protect metal from humidity, not from direct water. If you are worried about direct contact with water, you might want to consider water displacing or a wet film because that might be a little better suited for your application. But we just really want to avoid water on our parts altogether when we're dealing with RP. Climate controlled warehouse, yes, this is extremely helpful, but it's not necessary. That's typically why we're applying the RP in the first place, is because of the storage conditions. So RP, it's really not designed for permanent protection. It is a placeholder until that part goes into an assembly or another finishing is applied. So, we want to consider painting or metal finishing to really give us the permanent protection that we're looking for. The nice thing about a lot of the dry film RP is that you can paint directly over them, so you're not really adding any steps to your remanufacturing process. So, in summary, it is as easy as 1, 2, 3, and 4 to prevent rust in your remanufacturing process. We really want to choose the right prepping process for our parts. Then we need to maintain that prepping process to ensure consistent results. And we need to apply the right RP at the right concentration to give us the protection that we desire. And finally, we need to handle our parts with care from there. With that, I'd like to thank you for joining, and I would encourage you to go check out our library if you're interested in other cleaning topics or other rust prevention topics. Our library is full of a lot of interesting content, and it's just getting bigger all the time. So with that, I'd like to thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Chelsea for any questions.
Thank you, Ethan. If you would like to discuss this topic further, please contact your local KYZEN regional manager or send an email to tech@KYZEN.com, and we will have one of our cleaning experts schedule follow-up with you as soon as possible. Again, we thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great day.
Thank you.